Welcome to the Miami-Dade College Journalism Speaker Series. I'm your host, Manolo Barco. Joining us today is MDC-6 news anchor Kris Anderson. Kris, welcome to the show.
Manolo, thanks for having me.
Great
to be here.
We should get this out of the way. This is probably a historic moment in our history for the Speaker Series. You're like the 77th guest that we've had.
Wow.
The first time we've had two Rockets on set.
I know. We go way back.
Yes, sir. Well, you're a lot younger than me, but we were, I guess, classmates at FIU, at Florida International University, and also former Miami Central graduates.
A lot is a relative term. We're only a few years apart.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, we both went to Miami Central and then FIU, as you mentioned. So we were Golden Panthers back then. Now we're just Panthers. Right?
Correct. Tell me a little bit about your career. How did you first get into it? How did you say, hey, I want a career in journalism?
You know, sometimes you just stumble into a career that works for you. I grew up loving sports, and when I was at FIU, I wrote for the Beacon, the school newspaper, covering sports, covering the women's basketball team during the glory days where they made all those tournament runs. And I really love sports, and chatted with some of the professors at FIU and kind of guided me into the direction. I did an internship at MDC-6, where I work now, in the sports department, and eventually led to my first job in Oak Hill, West Virginia, in a small town where I moved from the big city of Miami, Florida, to this small town in West Virginia on 5 days' notice, and started my career in sports before eventually transitioning into news.
So talk to me a little bit about the very beginning. So talk about your times at FIU, some of the types of stories you covered. What kinds of things do students who are interested in a career start doing to prepare? You know,
some people know what they want to be from a very young age. I wasn't one of them. I didn't grow up saying, oh, I want to be a broadcast journalist or the next Tom Brokaw or Peter Jennings. For me, it was at FIU, I was in college, and I was really absorbing the different options out there, and took some journalism classes, took some broadcast classes, and thought, this is kind of cool. I loved sports, so it was a chance for me to be involved with sports, knowing I wasn't going to play professionally or collegiately. So it helped me to take that step into a career where it was doing something that I enjoyed. I loved journalism, just doing it in high school. I was writing for the school paper and did so at FIU, and it kind of led me into that career. Once I did my internship at MDC-6, it really opened my eyes to help me realize that this is something I really would want to do, seeing the day-to-day. And that's what's important about internships, is you learn in the classroom, but when you're actually at the internship in broadcast or whatever it may be, you get a chance to see hands-on what the daily life is like. And for some people, they said, yes, this is what I want, this is what I want to do. For others, it's more like, this is the reality, maybe it's not for me, and then you have a chance to find other options.
And what are some of those memorable moments that happened to you at your internship? Things that said, hey, yes, this is definitely what I want to do? Because I'm sure there were some times where you're like, hey, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah, a lot of it. And again, my internships were in sports before I made the transition. I've been doing news, for 17 years now, 18 years. So I made the transition a long time ago. But during my internship, I was in the sports department. I would go to Dolphins camp and interview the players, and go to Miami Heat games and interview the players after the game. So for me, this was like, I'm a college student, big fan of all these teams, and I'm there in the locker room, and I'm interviewing these names and faces, and back with the Tim Hardaways and the Alonzo Mournings and Dan Marinos and the big name players that I grew up idolizing and watching, and now I'm standing there in front of them, interviewing them, coming back to the station, helping to put together stories that I would see on the newscast. I wasn't the anchor, obviously, back then, or the reporter, so it wasn't my face, but I had a chance to write some of the scripts and the material. So for me, it was cool to see my work on a TV station in my hometown.
And how did that transition happen from sports to news? And obviously West Virginia, going to West Virginia.
Yeah, so I moved to West Virginia. It was a culture shock. It was a lot different, but I made some of my best friends there. We were all, none of us was from West Virginia. We were from all different parts of the country, all starting our careers. None of us was making any money. We were all broke college graduates working our first job, paying our dues. So we had a lot in common, and we really bonded and got great experience because we were our own producers. We were our own photographers. We were our own editors. We wrote all of our scripts. We stacked our rundowns. So I would go out. I would anchor the 6 p.m. sportscast, go out, shoot video for the local games, race back to the station, edit the video, write the scripts. put together the sportscast. And eventually our news anchor left, and my news director at the time said, hey, I think you do a great job with news. There are a lot of news opportunities out there, not as many sports. And you look at any news station or a newspaper, and you see a lot of news openings and a lot of news positions, but fewer and fewer sports positions. So I gave it a shot, and I loved it. I dove headfirst into news. I became their evening news anchor and have stuck with it, really embraced it, really enjoyed it. And that's, what I love and I'm passionate about every day.
Can you talk a little bit? So a lot of times we talk to our students about moving away and getting that experience, getting away from home and just kind of getting a different experience. Obviously, Miami, West Virginia are very different. Miami, Tennessee are very different.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about not necessarily the journalism part of it, but just the growing up part of it?
It's tough. For some kids, you graduate high school and you move off to go to college. I went to FIU. I lived at home. I didn't live in a dorm. I commuted back and forth. So once I graduated and was time to start my career, this was my first time leaving home, and I did it at an older age than high school graduates might who go off to college. So it was a challenge leaving family and friends and everything I knew. I was born and raised in Miami, grew up in South Florida. This was my home for 25, 26 years until it was time to move on. So that's one of the hard parts about not just this career, but any career that's going to require you to move. And in this job, you move around. I was in West Virginia for 4 years. I moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where I was for 9 years. Then I moved to Boston, Massachusetts for 7 years before finally moving back to Miami after 20 years away. So one of the biggest adjustments was learning to be on your own, learning to function on your own, taking care of the basics, paying rent, paying your electric, paying your gas bills, buying food, cooking, stuff that you maybe didn't learn when you're living at home. So it was a big adjustment, and a lot of people I know in this business or who were in this business left because of homesick or because they couldn't take the challenges where you're not making the money and you have to work your way up to finally start making good money in this business and pay your dues, essentially.
And now you have friends all across the country, right?
Yeah, and that's really cool. You get to watch how each other grew. Different people working in different markets, some still in smaller markets, some in mid-sized markets, some in New York, some working for networks. So you really create this web of journalists across the country, and you make these connections, and the people you met 20 plus years ago are become lifelong friends, and you get to watch each other grow and follow each other's careers and see the different paths they take.
Amazing. All right, we're going to take a momentary break, but we will return with Kris Anderson when we come back. Thank you.
Learn and earn today at Miami-Dade College. College graduates earn 56% more than high school graduates and $1 million more in lifetime earnings. A degree from MDC is your path to greater earning power and career success. Choose from hundreds of affordable high-tech and in-demand career programs, including cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, business, and nursing. Learn and earn today at MDC and fast-track your career. Enroll now at mdc.edu/purpose.
Welcome back. We're here with Kris Anderson today from MDC-6. Kris, welcome again to the show. Thank you for joining us. We were talking about your first job at West Virginia. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about the next step, moving over to Tennessee, and how that was?
Started in a small market. I think it was market 151. The way TV news markets work is they're ranked according to population. New York's number 1, LA number 2, Chicago number 3, Miami's 16, 17 range. It fluctuates. I was way down in market 151, which is a blessing because you're making your mistakes in front of a much smaller audience. So you can grow, you can develop as a journalist, and you're not in front of tens of thousands of people in a major market. So you can make your mistakes and you can learn and grow as a journalist. And that's what I did in West Virginia. I became the evening news anchor, worked there in that capacity for about a year before Memphis came calling. And I was always a night person. I was a night owl my whole career, and this job was for a morning news anchor position, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to anchor for the CBS station in Memphis. And it was an adjustment, just the hours, to take your body and get yourself used to waking up in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning. And not only waking up, but getting to work, functioning, looking presentable, You can't roll in sweatpants. You got to look good.
Can't be out all night.
Can't be out all night. You got to be disciplined. And I was in my 20s. I was in my late 20s, and it was an adjustment. It was before I had children, so it was a little bit easier to manage and maintain. But I was the morning anchor there for 9 years, and I loved it. It was we had a very strong show. We were a dominant #1 morning newscast. Made some great friends there. My twin sons were born there, and we really enjoyed Memphis for 9 years, which in this business is a long time. In a career where people bounce around a lot every few years, my goal was to try and establish myself in these markets and really dig roots down in deep and make myself not only a part of the news station, but a part of the community, because I think that's important for the viewers, to connect with you, to relate to you, to get to know you as a person, not just a face on the news reading. And when you become part of the community, it really helps people to trust you. They know that you live here, your family's here, you're really involved in the community, and I think it just helps build that bond and that connection with the viewers.
And talk to me a little bit about mentors that you've had in your career, because a lot of stuff you're talking about is very mature, future thinking, forward thinking, talking about like this is I'm looking at stuff in the long run, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about mentors and how important they are, and some of your mentors that have helped you out throughout your career, and what kinds of things that they helped you with.
It's interesting. Guy Rawlings was one of the guys I interned under. He was the sports anchor at NBC6 22 years ago, and we're still in contact today after all these years. And a lot of the people who I worked with, Donovan Campbell is a good friend of mine who went to FIU with me, and we weren't mentor-mentee type, but we were close friends through college who, careers went in different directions, and we're back here both in South Florida. So it's been interesting to be able to reach out to the different people over the years. When I got to Memphis, one of the evening anchors there, I looked up to him. He was a veteran anchor who had been in the market for a while. So the key to this business is to get better every day, to continue learning. And I think that's true with any career you're in, and watch other people, not to copy, but to learn, to see what styles they have. What are they doing that's good? Why are you connecting with the person you're watching? What are they doing that makes me as a viewer connect with them and want to watch them? And that's talent, that's techniques and skills that can help you develop as a journalist. So I think a lot of it was watching, observing, finding people who I felt did a really good job and really connected with the audience, and that helped to develop. And that's something I try to do. We get interns who come to the station and want to be journalists, and that's what I try to show them is the steps it takes to get there, and the persistence and the commitment, and don't rush the process. I spent 4 years in a very small market, spent 9 years in a mid-sized market, and then I went all the way up to Boston, which was, I think, market 7 at the time. So I was in a major-sized market for 7 years.
So just enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process. Get better along the way. Slowly take your time to learn and become a part of the community. Don't just get there and be focused on leaving. Initially when I graduated from FIU, I said, I'll go to West Virginia, I'll work there for a couple of years and get back to Miami. I just wanted to get back home to South Florida, to my friends, to my family, to the place that I grew up. But I wouldn't trade my journey for anything. It took me 20 years to get back, made some wonderful stops along the way, experienced different news markets, different cities, different styles of news. And I think that helped me grow as a journalist to where when I come back here to South Florida, I have so many more life experiences that I can bring the viewers here in South Florida and connect with.
You talked about starting at a small market, the importance of it, or that it was important for you to be able to make mistakes. Can you talk about some of the mistakes that happened, some of the bloopers along the way? I'm sure there's been some, right?
There have been, and I was fortunate enough that I made my mistakes before social media was around. So now with, Instagram and Facebook. Do people still use Facebook in the younger generation?
Yeah, not too much for them,
right?
yeah.
That's for our era.
Yeah.
But with Facebook and Instagram, everything is so magnified now, and you make a mistake and it spreads. I've looked at people and called them the wrong name. I've mispronounced towns and cities. And when you live in a market, in a news station, in a city, there's one way to lose that connection with your audience, and that's mispronounce some of these small towns that they're passionate about. For you, it's a town you just mispronounced. For them, this is where they live. This is where they grew up. So it's important when you move to an area, to learn about the area. Don't just live there and don't just read the teleprompter. Learn about the area. Learn how to pronounce the towns. Learn, why it's such an important place for them. So I think that's key. Is I've had plenty of bloopers where I've said the wrong name. I'm looking at the wrong camera. You mess up your script, and what you have to learn is you got to keep going. The mistake you make is usually nowhere near as bad as you think it is, and odds are most people watching aren't going to notice, but you notice, and you feel it, and you kind of inside, you're like, oh my goodness,
and I'm
how
sure
do I recover
even
from
now
this?
at this point in your career, I'm sure you have little small moments
yeah.
when they make those little mistakes.
We're live for 2.5 hours in the morning, and we're not making it through 2.5 hours without a stumble, without a bumble, without a mistake, but you know what, we're human. And I think people aren't watching us to be robots. People are watching us for delivering the news, but we make mistakes. I have bad jokes, or personalities. I think are a big part of why people watch. You look at all of the different news stations in town with Telemundo, Univision, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. There's so many different options you have. So why are you watching a particular station? Most of the stations are covering the same stories. I think it's the connection that you can build with the people you get to know. And I think being honest with your viewers, being real with them, and showing who you really are helps them see who you are and gets to know you and helps them connect with you and want to watch. At least I hope, right?
The connection, yeah. And I think that's one of the things that you and Constance bring is people connect with you too.
Thank you.
We're going to take another momentary break, but we'll return in a couple of minutes with Kris Anderson for MDC-6.
Learn and earn today at Miami-Dade College. College graduates earn 56% more than high school graduates and $1 million more in lifetime earnings. A degree from MDC is your path to greater earning power and career success. Choose from hundreds of affordable high-tech and in-demand career programs, including cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, business, and nursing. Learn and earn today at MDC and fast-track your career. Enroll now at mdc.edu/purpose.
Welcome back. We're here with Kris Anderson of MDC-6. Kris, thank you for joining us again. We were talking in the last segment about mistakes or bloopers or things that happen. Can you talk to us about your favorite stories throughout your career?
Yeah, wow, so many. I started my career in 2001, and it's kind of crazy. I started in a small town in West Virginia as a sports anchor, and January of 2001, February, Daytona, big story. Dale Earnhardt dies on the final turn at the Daytona Raceway. So that was a huge story for a journalist just getting started. 6-7 months later, 9/11 happens. These weren't favorite stories, but this was, wow, I'm really in this. And these are big stories happening right before my eyes. I'm witnessing history, but at the same time, I'm responsible for reporting on this history and bringing the information to the people watching. Some memorable stories in West Virginia, covering the sports and the football games. And the 2001 Hurricanes, I was there in Virginia Tech shooting the game where Virginia Tech dropped the ball in the end zone that would have given them the win over the Hurricanes in that perfect undefeated season. And then in Memphis, I remember there was a fire at a building that spread from building to building, but the building, all of a sudden, a big chunk of downtown Memphis is on fire. And I'm on the anchor desk reporting on this. Up in Boston, some memorable times for sports as well, which is a huge sports town. I covered 3 Super Bowls and Super Bowl parades, World Series championship for the Red Sox. But also, I was on the desk for hours on end with storm coverage, for blizzards, for nor'easters, and all kinds of crazy weather coverage. I was in the field during a blizzard, on the coast, getting sprayed by water and all kinds of elements. So it toughens you up a little bit. Guy from South Florida standing in negative degree weather with snow everywhere. And even here in South Florida, the historic floodings that we saw just last week, in Boston, the murder trial for the marathon bomber and Aaron Hernandez, the former Patriots player, the Donald Trump impeachment hearings and Supreme Court justice confirmation hearings on air with all of these different types of stories. So you're going in a wide range, and you have to know all of this information. You have to research, you have to prepare, because you're on air for hours on hours on hours on end, sharing this information with the viewers, and you need to know what you're talking about, because viewers can tell if you know what you're talking about or if you don't, and you want to be prepared and give them the best information you can. But even here in South Florida, the storms we covered, the trial for the Parkland school shooter, just the historic moments that we all get to witness before our eyes here in South Florida in just a very short time. I've only been here 2.5 years, but we've covered so many big stories. And that's the cool thing about working in a market like Miami and Fort Lauderdale and the 3-county area that's our viewing area, is so much is happening. And I get to cover these big stories and these history-making stories now in my hometown, which is a lot more fulfilling. It's a little extra special when you get to work in your hometown and in the area that you love, where you grew up, and now you're one of the faces people turn to for their news. And that's something that's been a career goal of mine since I started. Talk
to us a little bit about your process, your daily process. Amy Sanchez had asked, what is your process like in the morning? What time do you get up? Do you have a normal routine?
Yeah.
How do you get used to having these, what most people would be like getting up so early?
Yeah, it's tough.
Hectic.
I started doing mornings in 2004, so almost 20 years. And for a guy who doesn't like doing mornings, it's tough, but your body, you get adjusted. You never get used to it. You learn to deal with it. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, tiptoe around to not wake up my wife or my 3 kids that are in the house. Luckily, their bedrooms are spread out. I get in the shower, brush my teeth, get dressed for the day, go into the station, and that's where we do our own hair. We do our own makeup. People are like, oh, what time do you get your makeup done? What time do you get your hair done? I'm like, no. It looks this way because I do it myself, so forgive any of the poor processes to get it done. And then take time to go over our scripts and read through the stories. We have an editorial meeting at 3:15 through Teams or Zoom, where we can go over what we have planned for the day and what's in store. And then our show starts at 4:30, not 4:31, so we have to be in that chair ready to go at 4:30 to start delivering the stories. We have a rundown that lists what we're covering for the day and where our stories are, but that changes. There's breaking news all the time here in South Florida. Something's always happening. So we know that rundown is going to change, our stories are going to change, and you just have to be prepared to roll with the punches. And we're on till 7 o'clock in the morning, and then we have a fast channel now, which is on-demand content that you can get through different Roku type or Samsung TV, so we do a separate newscast for that. We do cut-ins with the Today Show. So we're constantly working.
Stuff coming at you, yeah.
Stuff coming at us. The past couple of weeks I've been filling in on the noon show. So my day starts at 3 o'clock in the morning, usually wraps up anywhere between 11:30 to 1:30, depending on what the workload is for the day.
And I'm sure you have plenty of things that you do in the community. You also have a family. You have 3 kids. You have a wife. How do you fit your personal life into all of this?
It's a balance. It's something, you have to be good at scheduling when you work in this business, because as I said, our show starts at 4:30 a.m. Camera goes on at 4:30 a.m. You better be ready to go. So it helps when you're structuring yourself. My co-anchor, Constance Jones, she is the most organized person. She has calendars and planners that remind her about her calendars and planners. I'm not quite as organized, but you try to do the best you can. One of the things I love about working mornings is I get done early enough that I can go home, take a nap, take a quick rest before my youngest son gets out of school, and then I have the whole evening time to spend with my wife and with my 3 sons. I coach baseball, I go to all the games, go to all the events. So it's tough waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, but for someone with children and with a family, it's the best shift, at least in my opinion, because you get to have that quality time with your family in the evenings, still take care of all of your work obligations and community commitments during the afternoon, but then have the whole night to spend with your family, which is what I love about it.
And the last question, talk about your morning show, MDC-6. You've been part of the team, you and Constance, that have revived the morning show and basically brought it up to top. And so talk a little bit about that.
We're a family in the mornings, with Adam Berg and Kristen Sanchez, and people always say, you guys really seem like you get along, and we do. And that's the thing I think people will notice is it's authentic, because Constance and I are great friends off camera, and Adam and Kristen, we're all friends off camera, away from being on the set. And Constance and her husband will come over to my house, or we'll go out and hang out together and spend time away from work and really get to know each other off camera. And I think that helps to be authentic when we're on camera and we're picking on each other or laughing with each other, or, you know, we have such a great relationship off camera that it translates on the screen. And I think that's what helps viewers connect with us, because they can see that people always say, you guys seem so real, so authentic. And because what you see is what you get. That's
the chemistry oozes, so you can definitely see the connection there.
Yeah. And I didn't do well in chemistry in school, but we're doing well with chemistry on television.
Awesome. Well, Kris, thank you for being on the show today, and it's been a great pleasure to have you here.
It's been a pleasure to be here.
Go Rockets, right?
Thank you. Go Rockets and go Panthers.